So without further ado, kind of who are we and what do we do? So I'm David Skinner, I'm the business IT consultant. So businesses that have questions about IT problems or concerns, they reach out to us. And generally the first person you're gonna visit with is is me after the initial call. And we're gonna come out and sit down, what are you trying to do? What is it that you need? Can we help? If we can, we'll get some costs together and so forth. If we can't, we're gonna point you in the right direction. We've got about 50 plus years combined experience. That's very conservative.
We don't do the math out loud.
Yeah, we don't do the math out loud. But I had my first paid IT job at 14, so that's earning pizza to bring a plant back up online or something like that. We've got a bunch of certifications though. The team is all widely certified. We've got CompTIA Plus, Network Plus, Pen Test, Cisco certifications, Microsoft certifications. They are ever changing. And they're broad in what they cover. And we work with we have a lot of industry partnerships, so we deal with Microsoft quite a bit, deal with some Cisco, Lenovo and HP are gonna be kind of our desktop and our PC hardware vendors. Fortinet is a great firewall vendor. Allworks and Cinch are gonna be our VoIP vendors and our phone system vendors. And SentinelOne and IronScale is on the security side of things, based around email and PC security. And we are a SOC 2 organized, we have a SOC 2 certification for the organization as well, which is fairly difficult to get, is my understanding. And kind of why should you care? So I focus mostly on small to medium business, and we kind of define that as 50 or less employees for the most part. The Department of Labor will tell you it's like 50,000 or less employees, but for us it's 50 or less employees, and then we kind of classify any medium business as kind of that 200 or less employees, and then it kind of goes up from there. But 43% of the cyber attacks are targeting SMBs specifically, so small to medium businesses specifically are being targeted in this because quite often they don't have the revenue to pay for as much protection as some of the larger businesses. The average breach for small business is going to be around 120,000 to 1.2 million as far as the direct cost to the business. So that's lost productivity, lost revenue, paying a ransomware if you need to, the time that people just can't work. If you figure up the cost of your employees per hour, if they're out of the office for a day, what that's just kind of cost your business, and it'll quickly hit those numbers. And then 80% of those breaches or 82% of those breaches involve a human. Somebody clicked on something they shouldn't have, or let somebody into a system they shouldn't have. Somebody called them and convinced them that they were Microsoft or they were some vendor, and they let them on their computer, and that is how 80% of that is happening these days, with a vast majority of it coming through email specifically. Email is the biggest attack vector these days. And then one of the things that I talk about a lot with our clients are cyber liability insurance, and about 25% of those claims are denied due to missing controls. So you have to, part of that process, and we'll talk about that later, but part of that process is you tell them what you do, what you have in place. You hope that's right, and if it's not, they can deny those claims. And so, cybersecurity, it's all about just kind of keeping your business running, making sure that you don't have any unexpected outages, protecting that money and that data that you have, which are kind of related. If you don't have your data, it's very hard to do billing, so it's going to affect revenue. Making sure that you can pass those cyber liability insurance requirements. Cyber liability insurance is one of those things that is important enough that I talk about it all the time, even though it is a product that we cannot sell you. You have to get a hold of your insurance person for that. But it is something that is absolutely critical, I think, to a business's integrity these days. And so we kind of want to help maybe reduce some of those human mistakes. And the biggest thing is just having a plan for when something goes wrong. So if you don't already have a disaster recovery plan or some incident response plans in place for how you will handle it when something goes wrong, it's a lot harder. And we're going to kind of talk about 5 things. Gabriel's going to go in depth about these 5 things specifically of what we can do to help improve your security, how to protect your identity and your access to different products, how to kind of keep your software updated and what the importance of that is, and how to best train your users, why having a good backup is important, and how to detect and respond to threats. So these are kind of the 5 kind of core things that help out your cybersecurity. There's thousands of different products. There's hundreds of different security vendors. There's a ton of different options for this. The big thing is making sure that you're doing at least some of it, and that you've got a good handle on what is coming down the pipe for everybody. I'll kind of turn this over to Gabriel a little bit, and I'll interject as necessary.
Great, thank you. I want to keep this as device agnostic as possible, so I'm not trying to sell one specific product, but I do care about specific tasks, and user training is a big part of this. So seeing what you do on a daily basis and how you actually use your business is really important, but I want you to think about these simple things or these core foundations to security that anybody can implement. So this is not going to be like, hey, you need to do this specific control at this command line. That's not what this is, but just first off, knowing how people get attacked. Like he was saying, nobody typically hacks into your systems by sitting in a command prompt. What they do is they hack into your system by sending you a gift card, or getting you to click on an email that makes you think that they're someone that they're not. So it's usually like human element that's a big part of that. So the first part of who a human is your identities, meaning your usernames and passwords, right? You log into your computers and you log in with a username. That's who you are. And making sure that when you're logging in that it's really you, and you would protect that with a password. But you live in the world, and you know what practices happen when you're asked to do so many complicated things like having a password that's new every 30 days, or having a super complex one. And what happens, we found, is that people they simplify it to do their job. And we know that everybody wants to do their job because that's the important part, but they will usually make security. They'll fill out the minimum requirements of security so they can just get past the security to do their job. And that kind of fatigue is really important that you understand. So we can build around that if we know that that's going to happen in the first place. So the thing to remember is user decisions matter more than technology. Like I said, it's not the technology that stops things or lets things in, but it's the people that are part of the process. And most incidents happen when a user feels rushed or pressured. I just got a text message the other day that says, hey, you've been driving through Chicago and you have an extra toll and this expires in 1 day, and that's that pressure of like, I've got to do something right now, or this is going to go to collections or something. And that pressure is when people need to stop and go, wait, I don't need to do anything right now. If today's the deadline and I didn't know about it until today, it's like I need to stop and step back, and the FBI is probably not going to call me personally to get me to log into my computer. That's not probably going to happen. One thing that is really important about identities and access is just using a password manager. I want you guys to use different passwords on every single web page you ever go to, every single system, and I want it to be a completely different password, and I want it to be a long password. And that's terrible, right? Nobody actually wants to do that, and so password managers are there to be that extra help for you so they can remember all those crazy passwords. And if they can remember all those crazy passwords, you only need the one password to remember to get into your password manager, and then your 400 other passwords can be long, can be complex, and they can meet all those requirements without you having to have that fatigue of, oh, what is this one? You know what, how about it's password 1, password 2, password 3, and people just keep repeating the same one over and over again. And I'm going to go farther into all of these, making sure you have multi-factor everywhere. Don't use your normal admins. I'm just going to get into the actual process. So first of all, stop changing your passwords. The more you change a password, the more you make it simple. So it's that password 1, cardinals with a capital C, and the A is an @ symbol, and there's a 1 or an exclamation after it because I have to do those things. Oh, I have to reset it. So now it's cardinals 2, now it's cardinals 3. And that process is super easy for a computer to hack. All they do is they add a number. And computers are good at numbers. And computers are great at just brute forcing into things. So I would much rather you have a very long password, 20 characters or more. And I know that sounds scary, but there's ways to make that easier. Also, using multi-factor on your phone, which I do have a slide for that too. But here is an example of passwords. So this looks super complex to us, to a person. P, capital P, the @ symbol, SSW0RD exclamation mark. It meets all the requirements. It's complex, and it will take moments for a computer to hack that, especially because it's a common one. But for someone to try to brute force that, they will try thousands of passwords a second, and this will come up right away. Make it just a little bit more complex, like spring 2026, there's 11 characters, only 2 more characters. That adds days onto the time. But still, that's only days worth of time it would take to crack that. But my dog loves snow and winter. Centuries to crack that. And after centuries, I hope it doesn't matter. It's not going to matter to me, but I can remember that. My dog loves snow and winter. It's a simple phrase, uppercase, lowercase. The length is there. Please don't use this one. But there's plenty of them out there that you could make a simple phrase that you can understand. It meets all the length requirements, and the length is way more important than just a simple, complex thing. My brain doesn't deal well with those symbols, but computers don't care. It's just another character for it, and so it can go right past that complexity. But this kind of complexity, it's never going to guess. Or if it does, it will be centuries past when it actually matters. And also multi-factor authentication. Hopefully you guys are used to this a little bit by now. Using your phone as a second factor in your authentication. You've got your username and your password, but if those are hacked, then having your phone or some token or some third party or some third device, that's the multi and multi-factor or second factor authentication. You guys have had experience with those, right? And
is there anybody who doesn't know what multi-factor authentication is or is not familiar with it, who hasn't ran into it by now?
It would be rare at this point. Maybe
Yeah.
5 years ago, this is not something as a requirement, but especially standing in a bank, I mean, they were probably one of the first people to push that out as a requirement for getting access to things. A password manager looks something like this. This is an example of one called Keeper. There's others out there, KeyPass, LastPass. There's a bunch out there. But the idea is that it has this list of all of the accounts on all the different websites you can go to, and it stores all of that in an encrypted database. That encrypted database is backed up to the cloud, so as long as you can get into that database, all of your words unlock to you. But should something happen to your computer blows up or something, gets caught in a fire, flood sweeps it away, all I have to do is log back into my account, and then I have all my access to all my different sites again.
Can I add something to this real quick?
Go for it.
So this ability to share passwords with coworkers and family, if you've ever been in a position where a coworker leaves and they had to log in for every website that you guys used as part of your business, and now you need to take all the time to go reset all of those, that should illustrate immediately why you need a password manager, because it helps that transition go a lot smoother. But it's also important that the business owner is the one who pays for and manages that password manager. Do not go let your employee go get a free one, sign up with their personal email address, put all of your business's passwords in their own personal password manager, and then walk out the door later on, because you'll have a bigger problem. If the business owns and manages that password manager, it makes transition from other employees to new employees a lot easier, and you can kind of control that and have a lot better visibility into it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Just don't let them use a free one that they sign up for with their own personal email address.
Right. You want to keep that out of
specifically.
any one person's individual ownership. That is really important. Google Chrome wants to be a password manager for you, and they're super helpful. That's really nice that they would just automatically ask to save all your passwords. And right here it says settings. By default, this is turned on, but if you leave that turned on, all those passwords are stored in plain text on your computer. It would take me seconds to get into all of those passwords on all those sites, and super easy to export. In fact, if you go in, I could scroll down here, there's a export to a spreadsheet feature right here. And like I said, it would take me seconds to get to that, export it, copy that spreadsheet off the computer. In under 1 minute, I could have all those credentials taken. If it was a script, even less time than that. So they're really helpful, but I would really avoid any sort of, not just Chrome, but Firefox, Edge. They're all going to have built-in password managers built into them that I would avoid. And Next, keep your software updated. There are new features. There are security holes that nobody knew about until Tuesday, and then Wednesday they had to have a fix for that, and nobody knew that that hole was there, and so having your updates is really important. Now, the Windows update is pretty simple. I mean, I'm sure it bothers you all the time. It's that thing that's been in your lower right-hand corner for like 3 months. It just says you should reboot, you should apply these updates, and it is really important. I would suggest at the end of a Friday would be a good time to just have it reboot when you walk away from it. Close down your 50 tabs. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to deal with that. But getting that updated is important because Windows patches do come out every Tuesday. Every week, there's updates. And that means that they found something wrong, that something needs to be patched. It might be minor. It might be, hey, sometimes this program closes the screen, or Notepad now needs tabs for multiple screens, whatever the thing is, but you never really know when that's going to be a bad one, and sometimes those pop up and they are really bad ones that you need to be aware of. So if you're in the process of just every week, I do a reboot, it should take care of a lot. In the lower right-hand corner, you're going to see this icon down here, and it should, I mean, you guys have Windows, right? So you're going to see these pop-ups, you know about it. I'm just saying pay attention to them. That's important. And if they never pop up, that is another issue. If your updates are broken or fixed, in this case, you do want to actually go through and do those updates on a pretty regular basis.
And know also, real quick, just to add to this, know that when we're talking about this, we're talking primarily small to medium businesses who don't have their own dedicated IT departments. If you're working for Blessing or First Bankers, your IT department probably manages those updates for you. Just be aware of that.
Right, but anything like 10 users, 15 users, nobody actually go through and sets that up.
Yeah. Definitely don't try to help your IT department at First Bankers or Blessing by doing the updates. They probably won't appreciate it.
Maybe ask your IT department
Probably
first.
won't appreciate it. It might surprise them if you can.
A lot of programs have their own built-in update, and it's usually under the Help menu. You click Help, Update, QuickBooks right here. It's in this list. For Adobe Reader, Help, check for updates, and people forget about those things too. Java's another one that wants to do updates all the time. Please, if you use Java, update it, because that is a program designed to run programs, and that's exactly how a virus or malicious software could get into your system. So Java's a big one that if you still use it, you would make sure that that's updated. All right, user training. Like I said, most people have this hate of training. I'm glad you guys are even here today. But the idea is, oh, it's boring. I don't want to deal with this, and it's so frustrating. But when your users don't know what to look for, and they don't have not been through simple human-based training, they're going to just do their job. They're going to click next. I don't know what that pop-up was, but if I click the X, it goes away, right? And so those kind of things are important to just teach your employees. You've got to do a couple simple things, like the passwords, making sure that you have, you're doing your updates. Those are simple things everybody can do, but also knowing what things look like, knowing what a bad phishing email were to look like. This is ransomware, an example of ransomware. If you were to ever see this, I'm sorry. It's very devastating to a company. And on day one, I've got all my files up here, I've got my pictures up here, I've got my PowerPoint saved passwords, oh no, in a text file. But then day two, I come in and then all my files look different. The icons are different. I don't have, well, they have this weird, whatever this is, I don't know what that looks, that's strange. And the only file I can open is README to unlock files. That's a classic example of what it would look like if your computer was taken for ransomware. And the idea is, they take all your files, they encrypt all your files, and this is pay us to get access to your files again. They want to get you access to your files again. Sounds weird. They don't want to keep you from getting access to that. If it was just malicious, they wouldn't get paid. And the idea is they want the money. They want to get paid. They want to give you access to your files again, because that means that you're more likely to not start a fight with them and just go, okay, I solved it, and then move on with life. You've paid them, it's a transaction, everybody's happy. I mean, you're really upset, but they're happy with it, and then they can move on. But just because you got access to your files does not mean that they also didn't get access to your files. If you have company information, I would assume it has been lost at this point. Somebody else has access to that data if a ransomware event were to happen. A way to protect against that, protect, not stop it, is to make sure that all of your data is backed up. And when your data is backed up, not that it's just backed up to like a local machine. So I've got my files, my servers, wherever my data lives, I've got a backup. I also test this backup. I actually don't just go, well, it hit the external hard drive or it hit the other thing and it said complete. But if you don't actually check to make sure the data is there, you're not going to go through log files. That's my job. That's not your job to deal with that kind of stuff. But if you don't know that your backups are working, you can assume they're not working. You need to test it, do a test restore, say, well, I've got it. Let's test it and restore it to another computer. Can I get my files from that restore, from that backup? And if I can't, then what good is it? I mean, I can send my data off to somewhere and have it encrypted, but then if I can't get it back, there's no point in it. I need to be able to get it back, and that's the point of a backup. But also, having your data in another location is important. This backup needs to be not just on site, but should something happen to your building, nothing malicious, but maybe a fire or a flood, and something happens to your physical location, and your backups are sitting next to your server. They're not in the server, but they're next to the server, and all of that's gone. That's your business. You have to have your business back. And so having it in another location, the cloud's another good location. If you were to have a secondary site, that would be another good place for a backup. If you have like, a warehouse or a secondary site to your business. And also making sure that your user and everybody's users is not an administrator. On my computer, I do not run around with an administrator account. Now, I do a lot of administrator things, but if I were to run around as an administrator on my own computer, anything I click on is going to run as if they were me. Meaning I click on the wrong thing on an email, it just goes, yep, I'm going to do my thing, and then just take over. But if I have this stopgap in here where it says, wait a minute, that's an admin kind of thing. Are you sure you want to do that? You better type in your special password, and I have a special elevated account that I can log into. So normal user for everyday tasks. If I have to do that extra elevated, whatever it is, updates, installing new software, whatever that is, then it asks me for that elevated administrator account. But I don't run around every day using that administrator account.
I will say if you have a small shop, this is the best, quickest thing you can do to help cut down on problems. Do not let your users run around as an admin on their computer.
There are softwares out there that can manage this for you, and they're called PAMs, or Privileged Access Management, and the idea is they manage it for you. So yeah, I got to run updates on QuickBooks every Tuesday or every month or something, and I don't want to have to get my IT guy involved. He's annoying, so I don't want to deal with him. But there's software out there that can auto-approve certain things. So don't have this program install itself and get a backdoor to my computer, but updates are fine to run. And so that one's pre-approved. That one will always run, and it will let me pass this point, but any sort of non-standard elevation would ask me for it.
Okay, before we move on from ransomware, can I just add a couple quick things? Gabriel's absolutely right. They do want you to be able to get your data back. More than that, they want your Bitcoin or Litecoin or Doge or whatever it is that they're asking for ransom in. Be aware that initially when ransomware first started hitting the scene, they were very, very concerned about making sure you got your data back because ransomware gangs were trying to build a brand, right? They were trying to build a name for themselves, and the only way you do that is if people trust you and know that by paying you this Bitcoin, I will get my data back. That has very quickly changed into a lot of copycat attacks as well, to where you are not always guaranteed to get your data back because it's very easy to make a piece of ransomware that puts up a ransom note and encrypts all your files, but the back-end infrastructure to automatically hand out a key when Bitcoin payment is received and things like that are much harder to orchestrate. And so just be aware there are a lot of copycat ransomware gangs out there that are just designed to get that coinage. And also on the other side of that, be aware that depending on who you're paying, if you're trying to pay a ransomware, if that ransomware gang is Russian or Iranian or in North Korea, you could be violating U.S. sanctions. So it's not really worth paying the ransom. Have good backups. Don't click on the bad things.
Yeah, backups are great. And sometimes when you think you have good backups, it's the first thing that people go after. So if a malicious actor were to get into a system, step one, delete all the backups. Before they do anything malicious, they're deleting backups. So that's why having an off-site, non-touchable backup is important, that you can't just automatically delete or have plugged into the server, because if it's plugged into the server, they can delete it from the server. So having it somewhere else is really important. In the past, when backups were tape drives, a great thing about that was you can just take the tape out and take it to another location, so you can't just immediately destroy it when it's plugged into the system. Phishing, which is email, which is where most things come through. Most things are not attacks, most things are links in emails. And having your users understand what a good email is and a bad email is really important. Or yourself. I mean, we all get tricked by these things, and hopefully they're stopped before they can go too far, but I'm pretty sure every single person in here has clicked on a bad email. Myself included, absolutely.
I have.
I'm not immune to this. But the idea is phishing attempts create urgency. That's what we're talking about before, of like, you've got a day to do this. This is a really important thing. I'm a really important person telling you you have to do this. And that's when people are quick to help. Everybody wants to help. And so like, hey, click here to help us fix your system. Click here or call this number to get us to make your life better or to solve a bad thing that happened. Maybe there's a pop-up that says, oh no, you're infected. And then they go, oh, well, I don't want to be infected. I better call this person and have them walk me through the cleanup process. And that's how they get you. It's that urgency that you have to avoid. Requests for money or access are common. Hey, let us in to help you, or let us in to get access to, let me make sure your bank account is not compromised. How about you go ahead and open up your bank account and make sure that there's no bad transactions? But when they do that, they're looking at your account and routing numbers. Now that they have that, you've just shown them the login to your system. So you need to make sure that you're not letting anybody in, even to make sure that everything is okay. You want to avoid that also. And like I said, we're at a bank, and the bankers will tell you, always verify sensitive requests another way. Somebody says, if you were, hey, I just got a new job or just moved. I didn't get a new job. I just moved, and now I have a new bank, and I need you to send my direct deposit to a new account number. And if you say, are you sure this is you? Of course, they're going to respond, yes, this is me. But if you call them, they'll be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's not my email. And you'll say, yes, it is your email. It came from you. I know your email. Maybe their email is compromised and it wasn't really from them. So verify that sensitive request another way. Pick up the phone and call that person. Make sure you know who you're talking to, because maybe the person that you're calling is not actually the person that you think it's going to be. Don't just trust the telephone number on the email. Like, oh, is this sure? I don't know if I'm really sure that this is the transaction that needs to happen. I'm going to call the number that's on their signature. But maybe that was changed also. If I can't trust that, I would look them up, go to their Google results, call their main bank number, find out from HR what their telephone number is, call them that way to make sure that that's actually the request you expect it to be. Here's some examples. Password reset. Hey, we got to reset a password. It looks like it's coming from the right people. This is a Cornell from the college or whoever it is, and hey, we have to change your password. Everything looks legitimate, but I don't know what that button does. That button could be anything hiding behind that button. So when I click on it, it does a thing, whatever that thing is, and I can't verify what it is. This is a classic one. They'll say, hey, you need to update your password or log into something, and you type your username and password in, and it doesn't work. Well, what you've just done is typed your username and password, and it takes that and sends it to a spreadsheet. And somebody just goes, oh, great, these are all the people that have given me their username and passwords. and you've just given it to somebody. So make sure you know where you're typing your password into. This looks fine except for that big blue button. I don't know what that does. Or this here, PayPal, great. Hey, we noticed suspicious activity. Make sure you log in now to restore your thing, but that is coming from Peterson Family Cairo. That's not PayPal. Everything can look correct, but if you don't know who it's coming from, that would be an indicator that it's a bad email. I sent myself a gift card. So from me to me, but an example of this is exactly what their gift cards pages look like. And then if you were to click on it, it would take you to wherever this is. And I can find out where it's going by just taking my mouse, don't click, but hover over here, and it will tell me this is where it would take you if you were to click it. And if you don't recognize that, that's not actually Amazon.com, then I wouldn't trust it. Also, no one gives you money if you don't expect it, so don't trust
That's
those
the biggest
things.
thing.
Also, maybe Amazon, it is from Amazon, or it's from something that looks almost like Amazon, Arnazon. Arnazon looks a lot like Amazon. If I squint, or if I don't look quickly, or if I just look quickly at it, I can't tell what it is. PayPal is not actually PayPal, it's PayPi with a capital I, or Google with the Greek O. They're all not the real links. But if you just go real quickly, they look like those. So that is tricky. I wouldn't even trust a link if I knew that it was the letters I expected it to be. Anytime there's a link in an email, I would always go to the website. If it says, hey, your Walmart.com account has been compromised, change your password, I would go, great, delete this email. I will now go to Walmart.com and change it in their actual website, but I wouldn't just ever trust the link to take me to the real place. Here's an example of call forwarding scam, which is really tricky because the idea is they create a sense of urgency. I'm the FBI, or I'm with Adams Telephone Cooperative, whoever it is, and they say, I need you to type some verification codes into your phone. You go boop, 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 and then it does something. You don't know what it does, but they're like, great, that verified it. I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll be in contact. And what you actually did was you just did some special programming in the background to call forward every single call, every single text to send to someone else. Now, when they type your username and password in a bunch of times, get it wrong, finally get it right, send that multi-factor authentication to your phone, it goes to somebody else. So this is an example of how they get around that multi-factor authentication. So they can intercept all those codes. Never dial those unknown codes. And always verify requests through a known trusted contact method. It'd be great if none of this were a problem. So a quick way to ensure that is to have a spam filter or spam gateway. And this is where we get a little bit of technical, but your company should be using some sort of spam filtering so that those bad phishing emails never even get to your users. I can't trust my users, I can't trust myself to not have 100% legitimate emails. So if they never get to me and something filters them out first, great. That increases my chance of having a good day. Some terms I want to talk I want to put a lot of weight on this word at the top, business continuity and disaster recovery, often abbreviated BCDR. Business continuity is the first half of this. This is knowing what your business is. If you sell widgets, understanding how to sell a widget. I take the parts for widgets, I get them from the widget part places, and I ship them to me, and then I assemble them, and I combine them, and I put my branding on them, and then I sell them to other people, and that is my whole process. I know what I do as a business. And should something happen, like a replacement of staff, like there's one key person who does all of my ordering for my widget parts, and if they were to get hit by a bus, this is not malicious, but should something happen to that person, how can I live without that person? How can I need to know every single step. I need to document every single step of my business so I know how to keep making widgets or whatever it is. And this is not a technical thing. This is a writing down your processes and procedures. Just actually documenting what you do and how you do it. So if anybody has a question, oh, what did Susan do? Susan always took care of this for me, that we have it documented exactly what those processes are. Or if a service outage happens, like my warehouse, we've dealt with this recently of the supply chain issues, where I can't get my widget parts from where I expected to. How do I keep my business running? Does my business rely on this other company to exist? Is everything tied to that one supply chain? And being able to pivot from those things if disaster were to happen to them. I want to keep making my widgets and doing what I do, but I need to know the whole process. So if anything were to happen along the way, I can pivot, I can move, and I can pick back up where things went wrong. Keeping your business going at its core, because that's what we want to do, is keep things going. From a technical standpoint, we talked about this, where making sure your backups are in multiple locations. So I've got my data backed up, verified locally, backed up to another location, verified in my other location, and if something were to happen to my original site, I've got my secondary site to deal with. And also, I've verified that everything is good. Like my cloud backups, it's nice that I have them, but if they don't restore, it's not much of a backup. Software as a service is another term you're going to hear, and we're going to go lightly over this part, but I do want to mention it, that Microsoft 365 is a great example of a SaaS, software as a service, as now I don't have a server on site. Somebody told me that I could just pay a small subscription fee, which is not that small when you add it up, but whatever. It's now in the cloud. I don't have on-site servers. They're now in the cloud. That's nice, but that doesn't mean that it's secure. In fact, in some ways, it's less secure because it's now in the cloud. And I'm not telling you to bring your servers back on site. That's not what I want either. But because it's now in the cloud and because Microsoft is everywhere in the world, now my data is technically everywhere in the world, which makes it attackable from everywhere in the world. So my data is nice and accessible for anywhere. I could travel to, I don't know, the Caribbean, and I could still do my job because all I have to do is log into my email because my email is accessible from anywhere. I don't have to be on site to get to it, which is nice, but there are some extra things that would be a problem for. Here's a good example of why that's not a backup. Just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean it's backup. It's in the cloud, but an example for OneDrive is, if you're familiar with OneDrive, it's like all my files, my documents on my computer are, let's use the word, backed up to the cloud. That's not actually what it is. It's duplicated to the cloud, but I wouldn't call it a backup. Because if something were to delete all the files of my computer, it would synchronize that to the cloud, and it would delete all the files from the cloud also. So it's just a duplication. I would not call it a backup. But there are SaaS backups where they will take your data once a day, 24 times a day, however often their service is, and you'll make cloud copies that take it from Microsoft or whatever your QuickBooks in the cloud, whatever it is, and make copies of them. Some of your cloud solutions do come with backup solutions built in, but not all. I would verify anything you log into to make sure it actually has backups. If they don't have backups, you should ask them, why don't you have backups? That's an important part of having my data secure, not just accessible, but also recoverable. I've also seen situations where something happened in the cloud where some database engineer messed something up and they had to roll data back, which can be devastating, of like, hey, the last week worth of productivity, they had to roll back to a previous version of. It's great that I still have my data, but that lost me a week worth of productivity. All my stuff, I have to redo that entire week. Now I'm running behind. It would be great if all of your backups weren't just a backup, but also they have versioning. That's a word you want to make sure that I can not just have one backup, like I back up and then overwrite my old backup. So I only have one good backup. I want to back up every day of every week, or every week of every month, or every year, whatever it is. But I want to be able to go, oh, my data was corrupted at some point, but I don't know when it happened. I don't know when the corruption was, so I want to go back a week Is my data good there? No, it's still corrupted. I don't know when this happened. Let's go back a month. Let's go back 4 months. Okay, my data is good there. I can recover from that old version. But when something happens, you don't always know exactly when that happened. So versioning is a great way to have lots of options for your restores. The next thing I want to talk about is antivirus or EDR. This is just some terminology. You're all aware of what antivirus is. It's antivirus. It stops viruses, right? And the way that it works is it has this master list. So here's a good example of, we've got this list of all the viruses, and if it is on that list, then they don't get through. They bounce off. Well, you can't come in because you're on that list. But if a person makes a brand new virus that is not on the list yet, it's going to get through because it's not on the list, which is why you want to make sure that your antivirus lists are updated often. And that's really frustrating. And most people are moving away from antiviruses to do the same thing. Now they want to use what's called an EDR. It stands for Endpoint Detection and Response. It works by looking how a virus would attack instead of having that pre-made list for things. This is a thing that most cyber liability forms will require, is an EDR. And if you don't know what that is, it's like an advanced antivirus. But the idea is it goes, okay, yep, you can get through. Okay, so the EDR says, well, I don't exactly know what you're doing, but it's not good. We're going to quarantine you until somebody else comes along. I'm responding and saying, I've never seen this before, but what you did was you tried to gain admin access. I don't trust that. I'm just going to block you down for now. I'm not going to delete you, but we're going to quarantine you because you did a suspicious thing. Or you all of a sudden renamed 1,000 files at once. Haha, that you had all the access to do it, but that was really suspicious. I don't trust it. We're going to quarantine you because of how the program acted. And EDRs do that. Also, they're really lightweight. They don't need that master list to sort through, which makes them a little bit faster.
If you think about every antivirus product in the world that uses a list-based system needs to have a hash of every single antivirus or piece of malicious software that exists, that list is going to get real big, real fast. That file size is going to get huge.
Yeah, so EDRs are like a must now. So this is like the takeaway. If you guys want to write down stuff, this would be what you need. Identity, making sure that you control access to your stuff, that you know who is logging in. Don't have everybody log in using the same account. I know that's super easy, but that can be a problem. Humans are always the person who is going to be targeted. Always slow down. Always verify requests another way. Make sure your updates are actually updating and they do close real security holes. Just because it's annoying, you do still need to run your updates. Backups are your safety net, and you have to test your safety net to make sure it works. I never want to test that safety net the first time in a disaster. You want to test it way before when things are nice and calm. And then good tools assume mistakes. Your people are going to mess up, but the good tools are going to protect you a little bit. But the biggest thing that will protect you is making sure your users are doing normal good practices. You don't need perfection, you just need consistency. Doing the right thing over and over again. Here you go, David.
All right, thank you. So I'll talk a little bit about cyber liability insurance, and it's weird for a consultant to talk about something that you can't sell, but we think it's important, so we're going to talk about it. Cyber liability insurance is that thing that kind of protects you from the things that your IT department can't. And so what I mean by that is we can put all of the antivirus and the backups in place, and we can train your users on how to do things. But if you're using a cloud-based provider, a SaaS option, if you will, and they have a breach, an upstream provider breach, where your data still gets leaked out, it wasn't anything that you did, it wasn't anything your IT person did, it was the people who wrote the software that had the issue. That still affects your business. You still have to disclose that to your customers and to your clients if privileged information was disclosed. And so that puts you in a place where nothing that you were doing could have prevented that at all. You need some way to help get back on your feet. And so cyber liability insurance does that. I've done this job for a long time, and when cyber liability insurance first came out, it was primarily focused on people who were looking for improperly used or licensed stock photography. So somebody took a bunch of pictures on Google image search, put them on their website, built a website around it. The person who took those pictures found that website and then sued them for not licensing those pictures. And that was pretty much all that cyber liability insurance was focused on at all. It was intentionally vague, and so they got a lot of people signed up on it. And then the first couple of years, when they started covering local system issues, they lost a lot of money. Those insurance providers lost a ton of money, and in that industry, there was a lot of consolidation, and then there was a lot of rulemaking that happens. And so now, what we see now are you have to have a list of required controls. And so controls are going to be things like, how do you manage an end user? Do you stop them from being an administrator on their own computer? Do you filter your email? Do you have good backups in place? Are those backups immutable, or can they be changed by somebody on the network? And so this list of controls is pretty in-depth, and depending on the revenue of the company, and again, I'm not an insurance person, but my understanding of helping a lot of people with these packets are, if you're kind of in the less than $2 million area, every area of revenue, that insurance questionnaire will be like a page or a couple questions, like 6 or 8 questions. If you're in that $2 to $10 million revenue range, that's going to change into a small pamphlet of questions. And if you're above 10 or 20 million, you get a book to fill out, and it's pretty in-depth about what needs to happen. And a lot of that's going to also depend on what industry you're in. If you're in an industry that specifically stores and handles protected, payment card information or protected health information or anything like that, those rates go up quite a bit. The requirements change quite a bit for you. But if you're not, it kind of goes down. And so this list of required controls matters a lot, and no offense to any insurance people that may be in the room. Your insurance person's not an IT person. They probably won't be able to help you much fill out that questionnaire. Your IT person should really be the one that can help you with that, because the insurance person doesn't know what policies your IT department has set. They have no idea, and they probably don't have the experience to go in and dig in and find out. They're going to provide the pamphlet and the pricing and kind of go from there. So the process typically is you fill out this questionnaire, you tell them what your processes are for your business. If you have a problem, that's where incident response teams will come into play. And incident response teams will, depending on your level of coverage or the event type that it is, they will either come on site, or more likely they will engage with you via phone, and they'll have you load some software on all the computers, load some software on the server. They'll look into your online email storage and things like that. And they're trying to figure out how this happened. How did this come to happen if you've got all these controls in place? And quite frequently they will find out that, people didn't have the controls in place. They either didn't know, or they were told wrong, or they were configured at one time and then turned off for some reason. And so the incident response company is going to find out if those controls are actually in place, and if they were not, they're either not going to cover your claim, or if they've already paid your claim out, they're going to claw back that money. There's some really interesting law cases that are happening around this, or that have happened around this in the last few years. So know that we think it's important, again, because we can put all the stuff in place to try to protect people. But if you have an upstream provider that gets breached, that is where these guys come into play, because they're going to do things like spin up a customer service phone number for people who have questions about the breach, so that your people aren't at the front desk, aren't answering those calls. They're going to, as part of your premium, they're going to offer things like credit monitoring for X number of days or months or however long you need. They're going to make sure that you can meet all your requirements after a breach. And this is just kind of an example of an indicator form that we see a lot, we help people with a lot of times. And so typically, again, my understanding of the process is you will fill this out, and then this is going to give the insurance company an indication of whether you're going to be able to be covered or not, depending on what your answers are to this. And then they'll send the actual form out with the list of controls, and they'll ask how you do it. And so typically those controls are going to be things like enhanced email screening with a quarantine, phishing or security awareness training. This is a huge one. Security awareness training, again, trying to train the people, making sure you have an actual EDR in place and not just some antivirus that doesn't get monitored. Making sure that multi-factor authentication is everywhere that you can possibly have it. The 3 places they typically are going to ask for it on are going to be on either desktops and laptops, protecting email accounts, and then if you have any remote access to your network, like a VPN or something like that set up, they're typically going to request it on those 3 areas. If you still use VPNs for things, know that the list of firewalls that support multi-factor authentication, it's smaller than just
Super
your
small.
standard. Yeah, there's
And sometimes
there's
you have
3
to
or
like
4.
hack it to make it work. It's
Yeah,
not,
there's 3 or 4.
standard.
There's a couple that work real good, but know that changes things a little bit. And so we're trying to give people advice to like move away from VPNs if you can to some other options. But the other things that they typically are looking for is, are you backing up and retaining your email? Again, like Gabriel said earlier, Office 365 is not backed up. They will tell you that data is not backed up. If you've got a bunch of stuff in OneDrive and SharePoint or in your inbox, that stuff can get lost. It can get deleted either by something that you do or something that Microsoft does. And I'll show you the actual part of their agreement where they tell you this. Making sure that people aren't logged in as an admin, super important. If you're logged in as an admin, you can install software. If you can install software, you can uninstall software. So you can uninstall security things and monitoring pieces. So you really can't have your users logging in as an admin. And then making sure that you have a good network firewall with what they call the intrusion detection and prevention services, advanced malware scanning. It's some things that happen at your firewall level that we can turn on these days that are really pretty valuable. One of the big questions on this also, and I know this is hard to see, but has the applicant had any following cyber insurance claims in the last 5 years? That matters a lot too. And so kind of the industries that you're going to see that are attacked the most: manufacturing, finance, insurance, standard consumer business, education, healthcare. And it's weird because this is inverted. In the past, it was more healthcare because that's where they really have an incentive to pay those ransoms because of the amount of fines and everything that they will have to face. But manufacturing is a bigger target with a bigger attacks vector these days, and they still have money. So again, human errors result in data loss most of the time. It's somebody clicked on something. Who's the problem? We're the problem. Humans are the weakest link in cybersecurity. They do require constant training. We can't beat this into you enough, is if you think something is suspicious, you don't click on it. It's like if you found a piece of candy, you probably wouldn't eat it. If somebody emails you a Starbucks gift card, you're probably, like, is that real? Like, does Starbucks really want to give me $30 today? Probably not. And this is what I was talking about earlier. So, and not to bore everybody, but just know that Microsoft will tell you that you should have, we strive to keep our services up and running. However, all online services suffer occasional disruptions, outages. Microsoft is not liable for any disruption or loss you may suffer. We recommend that you regularly back up your content and data that you store on the services using third-party apps. So they will tell you that this is a good idea.
I mean, they tell you quietly, but they do tell you.
Yeah. This is not easy to find if you've ever read a service agreement, but yeah, we hear all the time, I do this thing in Office 365, so it's backed up, it's online. It's not the case, it's not true. And we have seen instances where somebody has gotten their account compromised within Office 365, and we've had to restore things like their inbox or their OneDrive and things like that. And we have tools that can do it, but it's important that you have that third-party backup ahead of time. Industry trends that we're seeing: cyber liability insurance is becoming way more widely required by a lot of fields. It's actually, and I've talked to we have some auditors that are clients of ours as well, and some things like that, and I've talked to them, and they've said that cyber liability insurance is going to become a thing it's part of your business evaluation. So if you don't have a cyber liability insurance policy and you're trying to sell your business, and nobody will give you one because you don't have any of the controls that are in place, anybody who's looking at buying that business should look at that as a liability, because that before that's a stand-up business, you're going to have to invest all that money in cyber liability or cyber security pieces to qualify for that cyber liability insurance. If you can't get the policy because you don't have the things in place, you need to. And so it's going to affect the valuations of businesses in the future. More restrictive policies for workstations and networks. And again, in the beginning, they only really cared about online content. Now they care about, can you be an admin on your computer? Do you have antivirus? Do you have EDR on it? Do you back it up? Do you use privileged access management? All of that stuff they ask those questions about.
Another one on that one is they are requiring like your computer be encrypted, and that's another one that you don't even know what that means for your computer. But there's a thing called BitLocker that most computers have. That if your computer's hard drive were to be taken out of their laptop, that nobody can read it. And if it's in the laptop, it's fine. There might be a passcode or something to log into it, but that's another requirement they're asking for is encrypted hard drives.
And so to just really illustrate that for you, I used to keep a flash drive in my binder that had a USB stick that you could pop into a computer, and you could boot it up, and you could remove any password on any local computer. If it's Windows 7 or above, I think it was. Super easy to use.
As a tech, it's really helpful. I forgot my password.
We get those calls all the time.
Yeah. But now you can't do it because it's fully encrypted. I can't get into the drive to do anything.
And so it's a pain, but it's also like this computer is more secure because if it's not encrypted like that, and say your computer's powered off and it has a good 20-character long password, but the local hard drive isn't encrypted, if somebody smashes your window and takes your laptop, they could boot up off of this flash drive and find this password or clear this password and get to your data. And I don't know about you guys, but if you can get logged into the desktop, you can get into certain things like Amazon and your email and maybe your online bank, maybe not. But if I can get to your Amazon, I can just buy myself a bunch of gift cards. I don't need to get into your bank account. Do email archiving. That is a big thing as well, along with the requirements to pre-filter it. So pre-filtering is great. Keep all the bad things out of the email to begin with. Archive it, make sure that it can't get lost or stolen or deleted. And then this is a big thing as well that we're seeing in a lot of cyber liability insurance policies are you have to have HR policies. And so as IT folks, boy, we actually kind of hate telling people what to do, but the business needs to. The business needs to say, hey, if you're using our equipment, this is how we expect it to be treated. This is what we expect you to do on it. You shouldn't ever do these things with it, and so you need to have HR policies for data use, mobile device management, and AI. And real quick about mobile device and AI is if you let people use their personal cell phones to access your business email, the chances of that data getting compromised is going to go up because people also let their children play games on their phones while they're waiting for something. So if you can access corporate email on your cell phone, you need to think about that like that's actually your employer's phone because that data can be compromised. And then AI is super neat. The thing about AI is it's constantly learning, and there's different types of AI. There's public AI and there's private AI, and you can do things like ask ChatGPT, who you think's going to win March Madness or whatever. Or you could have it do something like organize a list of people by, say, the revenue they bring in if they're salespeople or something like that, or whoever your most valuable clients are for a marketing campaign, which is super cool. But the thing to keep in mind is that is not just your AI, and that can go into the collective consciousness of that AI, and other people could then say, hey, who is the most valuable person? And AI knows that now because you've fed it these tables of things that it's constantly gathering and learning more information from. So if you're gonna use AI in business, have some policies around it. At Adams, we've recently added AI policies to our HR handbook. It is a thing that we deal with, but more so maybe look at having your own personal AI for a business, something like Copilot set up so that it's focusing on just your data and have good guardrails up, because if you did something like set that up for your business and then fed it all the payroll data, and everybody has access to that Copilot, they can say, who is paid the most at our company? And it will tell you those things. So AI guardrails are important. Policies around all that stuff, that matters a whole lot these days. How can we help you? We can do all the things. So we can help you get set up with secure hosted email. We can help get your EDR set up. We can set up Microsoft services. And I talk about Microsoft services here because, again, going back to it's the YouTube universe, it is the AI world. I could, if I was interested in spinning up a business grade email, within probably 2 hours of me becoming interested in doing it, I could have it spun up and have a domain name purchased, and I could have functional Microsoft Office services up and running within an Office 365 tenant. It won't be secure, but it will be running. Getting the thing up and going is the easy part of it, but making sure it's actually secured is a lot harder. It's fairly easy to spin up those services. Enhanced phishing protection and training. Yeah, we use a great product for that that's industry recognized. Multi-factor authentication, we set a lot of people up with that. PC server backup for email, for whatever. We have a lot of different backup options available for you. And more than anything, if you just want to get together and talk about some questions you have, again, you've got a business card for all of us. Feel free, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'll be happy to come out and visit with you. If it's something we can help with, we'll tell you. We'll give you pricing on it if it's something we can do. And if it's not, we're happy to just point you in the right direction. We're a community organization. You know, we try to help out as much as we can. Some of the partners that we work with, you know, Cisco Meraki for firewalls and networking stuff, and Lenovo and HP for desktops and PCs and laptops, and IronScales is the email protection service, Duo for multi-factor authentication. Datto is a great backup company. It's one of the ones that we use probably the most. Fortinet, again, with the network firewalls like Cisco Meraki stuff. SentinelOne is going to be your antivirus or EDR, I will say. And then Ubiquiti is just another network vendor that we have. So we work with all of these and a bunch more as far as partners go. If you have any questions or anything, please feel free to ask. Now is the great time. If you got to take off, totally understand. Email them to us, call us, whatever. We're happy to help out.